The news just broke 1 minute ago, ladies and gentlemen, and all of Westminster is shaking to its very foundations. What we are about to reveal is not just a rumor. This is a seismic document leak, a top-secret memorandum released from an anonymous, high-level source inside number 10 Downing Street, and it confirms the darkest fears of every royal observer. This document, a 3-page internal email sent directly from Keir Starmer's office, bears a chilling subject line: the new Windsor scenario. The contents within are more than a scandal. They are a detailed blueprint, a ruthless roadmap for how the Labour government can effectively neutralize King Charles III. But here is the most horrifying detail, the twist that has left every member of Parliament stunned and journalists speechless. Starmer's plan is not a frontal assault. No, it is far more sophisticated and far more venomous. The entire scheme hinges on one unexpected ally, a figure Starmer believes can be used to constitutionally bypass the king. That person is none other than Prince William, the Prince of Wales. As we speak, Parliament is descending into utter chaos. We are getting live reports of shouting from within the main chamber. Conservative MPs are demanding an emergency hearing, accusing Starmer of weaponizing divisions within the royal family for pure political gain. Constitutional analysts are calling this unprecedented, a daring gamble that could permanently shatter the fragile balance between the government and the throne. Sources from Buckingham Palace describe an atmosphere of shock and horror. An insider has just told us that King Charles was completely unaware of any secret back-channel communications, blindsided by his own government and, terrifyingly, perhaps by his own son. The unexpected script is unfolding before our very eyes. Starmer isn't just trying to govern the country, he's trying to change the rules of the game by using the heir to the throne to neutralize the reigning monarch. Starmer is attempting to rewrite the British Constitution in his own image. This is no longer politics. This is a war for the throne, and it has just begun. Now, let's dissect the bombshell document itself. The new Windsor scenario memo is not a casual suggestion, ladies and gentlemen. It is a calculated psychological operation. Sources who have seen the full text and who are now risking their entire careers by speaking out say the memo explicitly outlines what Starmer's inner circle calls a dual monarchy strategy, using Prince William as a constitutional partner to legitimize reform. This entire crisis stems from one thing: Starmer's upcoming public Referendum Act, a radical, sweeping piece of legislation designed to put the very existence of the monarchy, the House of Lords, and Britain's ancient traditions to a public vote. Starmer knew King Charles, a man steeped in history and the sacredness of his duty, would be the ultimate roadblock. He would view this as an existential attack on the crown itself. So, Starmer devised a way to go around him. The leaked memo details a sinister plan to open a parallel channel of constitutional advisement directly with Prince William. It shockingly describes Prince William as forward-thinking, pragmatic, and receptive to a 21st century framework. The memo's goal is to cultivate William as the modern face of the royal family, a man who understands the need for change. But here is the most damning line in the entire 3-page document. A direct quote from Starmer's chief strategist is now circulating in disbelief. Quote, "We must elevate the voice of the heir. By aligning our reforms with the prince's inevitable vision for a modernized, leaner monarchy, we make the king's objections seem like the dying gasps of a bygone era." End quote. This is the neutralization plot. It's not a legal coup, it's a public relations coup, a cold, calculated plan to politically isolate the king, painting him as an out-of-touch old man clinging to the past, while Starmer and a progressive Prince William march arm in arm into the future. The sheer, cold-blooded cynicism is breathtaking. Inside Westminster, the fury is palpable. Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg has just taken to the floor of the Commons, his voice trembling with rage, calling it an act of profound constitutional treason and demanding Starmer's immediate resignation. The government is in meltdown. But the real question now is, what did Prince William know and when? The fallout was instantaneous. Within 20 minutes of the leaking, all hell broke loose behind palace walls. Our sources inside Buckingham Palace describe a scene of pure, unadulterated panic. A senior aide was reportedly seen running down the corridor, white as a ghost, shouting, "He's been cut off! He's been cut off!" The king, who was in a routine briefing on agricultural policy, was handed a red-marked folder by his principal private secretary. Witnesses say the king read the single-page summary of the leak, and his face turned to stone. He didn't erupt, he didn't shout, he simply said 2 words: "Get me, everyone." Within the hour, an emergency war cabinet of senior courtiers and constitutional lawyers was convened at Buckingham Palace. But here is the most terrifying detail. Kensington Palace, the home of Prince William, was pointedly not included in that initial emergency call. In a move of cold, calculated self-preservation, the king has built a constitutional firewall between himself and his own son. He is now operating under the assumption that his heir is, at best, a compromised party, and at worst, a willing participant in Starmer's plot. And what of Prince William? Kensington Palace has gone into total lockdown. They've issued a single terse statement, a masterpiece of non-denial. Quote, "The Prince of Wales remains steadfast in his commitment to supporting His Majesty the King." Unbelievably, the people of Great Britain have received a statement from Kensington Palace that says absolutely nothing. It doesn't deny the meetings, it doesn't condemn Starmer, it's a holding pattern. But sources close to the prince's own staff are painting a far darker picture. They claim William was used. Starmer strategists, led by the infamous Sue Gray, had allegedly been cultivating a relationship with him for months, presenting their reforms as simple, common-sense modernizations. They reportedly fed him a steady diet of polling data showing that the monarchy must adapt or die, preying on his desire to secure the institution's future. One source said they sold him a vision of a people's prince, leading a people's monarchy, all while hiding the dagger they intended for his father's back. The British media is now a raging inferno. The Daily Mail's front page, already leaked for tomorrow, consists of a single word in 300-point font: treason. The Times is running a scathing editorial titled "The Prime Minister's Constitutional Coup." Every broadcaster, every radio show is consumed by the story. The public is reeling, caught between loyalty to their long-serving king and their popular prince. Starmer hasn't just triggered a political crisis, he's ignited a civil war within the very heart of the royal family, forcing the nation to choose. And the king is not taking it lying down. He is striking back. The king's counteroffensive has begun, and it is a masterstroke of constitutional power. Forget a press release, forget a quiet word of warning. The king is using the ancient, ironclad levers of the state that Starmer thought were merely ceremonial. At precisely 6 p.m. tonight, just 2 hours ago, the king did something that hasn't been done in living memory. He bypassed the prime minister. He didn't just ignore him, he treated him as if he were irrelevant, a hostile actor. The king convened an emergency in-person meeting of the Privy Council at Buckingham Palace. Not the full ceremonial council, but the core quorum of senior trusted advisors. And here is the move that has sent Starmer's government into full-blown panic. The king specifically requested the attendance of the Lord President of the Council, the leader of the opposition, and, crucially, 2 of the most senior crossbench neutral peers in the House of Lords, who, both, are retired Supreme Court justices.
This isn't a political meeting. This is a council of war. The king is seeking constitutional counsel on whether his own prime minister has committed an act of bad faith so profound that it breaks the constitutional compact. He is, in effect, asking a single question: has my government gone rogue? The shockwaves are already hitting number 10. Starmer's team is in apoplectic fury. They are screaming political interference, but the king's move is too clever for that. He isn't making a political statement. He is seeking constitutional advice, which is his absolute right. He has turned Starmer's own plot back on him, painting the Prime Minister as the one who overreached, the one who tried to shatter the sacred trust between Crown and Parliament. And the military is watching. Reports from the Ministry of Defense indicate that senior military aides, generals, and admirals who swear personal oaths of allegiance to the king, not the Prime Minister, have been holding informal discussions all afternoon. They are described as deeply unsettled by the memo's language. The word neutralise is not a term they take lightly. It is a word used against an enemy. In his arrogance, Starmer has not only alienated the king, he has rattled the very institution that protects the realm. The Prime Minister is now trapped. He has been outmaneuvered by the very out-of-touch old man he sought to sideline, and now he must respond. We are hearing that Starmer will make an emergency statement to the nation from Downing Street within the hour. Will he apologize? Will he double down and accuse the king of a constitutional coup? The next 60 minutes will define the future of this government and the monarchy. The scene cuts to 9 p.m. A single podium stands in front of number 10. The street is silent, lit only by the flash of cameras. Keir Starmer walks out, his face a mask of grim determination. This is it, the emergency statement, the moment the nation holds its breath. But this is not the speech of an apologetic man. This is not a prime minister begging for forgiveness. This is a declaration of war. Starmer, in a chillingly calm voice, begins. He does not deny the memo. He owns it. He dismisses the melodramatic interpretations of his hysterical opponents, calling the new Windsor scenario nothing more than responsible, forward-thinking contingency planning. He even calls the word neutralise a commonplace political term, one that had been grotesquely twisted by a media loyal to the old establishment. And then, the pivot. The move that made grown men in Parliament gasp. Starmer turned the entire crisis on its head. He claimed the real constitutional crisis wasn't his private memo. The real crisis, he stated, looking directly into the camera, was the deeply troubling decision by the king to convene a secret council bypassing his own elected government to debate the removal of a prime minister. It was a staggering, breathtaking lie. He had just publicly accused King Charles of attempting a constitutional coup. He painted the king's defensive action, the emergency Privy Council, as an offensive attack on democracy. He portrayed himself as the victim, the defender of the people's will against an unelected monarch engaging in 18th century shadow governance. And then he addressed the William question. He said he profoundly regretted that the Prince of Wales, a man he deeply respects, had been maliciously dragged into this affair by the press. It was a tactical masterpiece, simultaneously absolving William in public while cementing the private alliance. But it was his final line that has sealed Britain's fate. He would not be intimidated. He would not be cowed by the forces of unelected privilege. And therefore, he announced he would be accelerating the timeline for the public referendum acts. The vote, he declared, would now be in 6 months. The events of the last 12 hours have proven beyond all doubt that the question of the Crown's role in our modern democracy must be put to the British people. Let them decide. He turned and walked back into number 10 without taking a single question. The financial markets had just opened in Asia. The pound collapsed, falling 10 cents against the dollar in 12 minutes. Britain was in free fall. Starmer had called the king's bluff, and in doing so, had pushed the entire nation onto the battlefield. If Starmer thought his 9 p.m. statement was a checkmate, he had fundamentally miscalculated the man at the center of his plot. He forgot that Prince William is not a politician. He is a son. Inside Adelaide Cottage, the Prince and Princess of Wales watched Starmer's speech, not on television, but on a live feed on an aide's laptop. The atmosphere was deathly silent. When Starmer delivered the line, maliciously dragged into this affair, a source close to the princess said Catherine simply closed her eyes. William understood the gambit instantly. It wasn't an absolution. It was a threat. It was a political cage. By defending William publicly, Starmer had cast him as an asset, a man who understood the need for reform. Starmer had placed a golden, velvet-lined collar around the prince's neck. To stay silent now would confirm his complicity. To speak out would start a war. William looked at his most senior aide. "Get me a car. No security detail. Just you and me. And call the palace. Tell my father I am on my way." At 10:17 p.m., the entire narrative collapsed for Starmer. While pundits were still screaming on every network, a single grainy photograph taken by a lone press photographer camped outside the palace gates hit the wire. It was the Prince of Wales' personal Audi, unescorted, sweeping through the black iron gates of Buckingham Palace. This was the answer. It was not a statement, it was a picture. The heir, in the dead of night, in his own car, without the pomp of royalty, racing to his father's side. In one image, William had destroyed Starmer's entire narrative. He hadn't